Thank you. I want to thank you, everyone, for coming today. Thank the press for being here. I want to thank everyone that's behind me. We're going to have a brief speaking program today. I'll just go through it real quick. Commissioner Evans is going to talk about safety precautions for first night and leading New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Dusty Rose from Convention is going to talk about the plan for New Year's Eve and how we're going to move forward. Chief Green from the MBTA Police is going to talk about the MBTA and any other public safety questions. And I'm going to ask Commissioner Finn from the Fire Department just to talk a little bit about, not necessarily about first night, but talk about in the cold weather what precautions people should take in their homes, so you can get the report out to people if you would help us with that, in this crazy cold weather we have. But I want to thank everyone who's behind us today. I want to thank all of the cabinet chiefs that are behind me and all the folks participating and helping us with First Night. First Night is certainly, as we all know, a great Boston tradition. It brings people together at the start of the new year. Conventions has done another incredible job this year. We want to thank them for also taking the reins again this year and setting up such a great plan. The only thing that I know is a guarantee is that the ice sculptures will not melt in the next 3 days. But as always, safety is our #1 priority. I know many of you grabbed me yesterday about safety on First Night, so that's our #1 priority. All of our public safety agencies have been working hard to make sure that it's a safe night for everyone, so I want to thank them for that. Whether people are coming to celebrate downtown or out in the neighborhoods, we're making sure that we have a good, strong presence in both areas of the city. We're not giving one up for the other, so we want to make sure that happens. There'll be extra EMS on the street. Chief Hooley's here today. I want to thank Chief from EMS. There'll be extra police on the street and other emergency personnel, including fire out there. This year's New Year's Eve is going to be very, very cold. The forecast calls for very low temperatures and very high winds. I think the forecast could actually dip below 0 on New Year's Eve. We're going to be watching the weather forecast very closely. We've been following it for the last couple of days here. All activities, including fireworks, will go on if weather conditions are deemed safe by public safety officials. So as of right now, every event is on, but as we get closer to New Year's Eve night, we might have to make some alterations. So for example, if it's high winds, we won't be able to do fireworks, things like that, and we'll figure out as we move forward. We're asking people, if you do decide to come in for New Year's Eve, we're asking you to be careful. We want to make sure that everyone understands that First Night is an entirely outdoor event. There are no heating tents in Boston. There will be stores open and shops open, but the entire event is outside, whether it's the parade or it's the fireworks or on Copley Square, Copley Plaza. It's all going to be outside. We're asking people to dress warm with lots of loose layers. We're asking you also to watch out for signs of hypothermia and frostbite. In these very cold conditions, frostbite can happen in as little as 30 minutes. We're asking people, if you feel it's too cold or you didn't dress appropriately, be smart and call it a night. If you or anyone else needs medical assistance, if you don't see medical personnel right around you, call 911. We're also asking people, in general, if you see somebody out there that's homeless or somebody that might not be dressed appropriately, call 911 just to make sure we can go out and do the appropriate pickup and try and get the folks into shelter. No matter how you ring the new year in, there's things that everyone can do to make sure that it's a safe night. We want you to, if you drink responsibly. Remember, public drinking is not allowed, so we're not tolerating public drinking on a public street or in the park or in Boston Common. If you're drinking, we ask you never to drink and drive. That's something that we're going to be watching out for, along with the MBTA and the State Police and the Boston Police. We want people to pay attention to street closings and parking restrictions. If possible, leave your car at home and take the MBTA. All T service will be free after 8 o'clock, and there'll be additional trains running at rush hour levels from 3 p.m. in the afternoon until 2 a.m. in the morning. For more information on the MBTA and your New Year's service, you can visit mbta.com/holidays. Again, I want to thank our public safety personnel for keeping our city safe on First Night every single year. I want to thank Conventions for working this year to make sure we have a great and safe event as well. And I want to wish everyone a safe and happy and healthy New Year. I'm going to hand off to Commissioner Evans. After Commissioner Evans will be Dusty Rhodes, Chief Green, and then Commissioner Finn.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Again, I can lead off by saying there is no credible threat at all to the city on First Night. You know, I met with the Regional Intelligence Unit this morning. I had conversations with Hank Shaw, who's the special agent in charge of the FBI covering New England, just about an hour ago. And so we don't see any threat that is going to impact. But that being said, we always worry about someone who might be inspired by whether it's ISIS or whatnot, more the homegrown. So we're always asking people when they're out there, obviously, be alert for anything that might be suspicious. We're asking people not to leave backpacks unattended. And that being said, we'll have plenty of assets out there, both uniform and undercover. A lot of our officers are trained in the characteristics of someone who might be carrying a bomb. We'll have those observation officers out there. But right now, there is no threat. What you'll see, and what you've seen in recent events, unfortunately, is you'll see a lot of trucks, whether they be public work trucks or whatnot, out around Copley Square, shutting down Copley Square to any motorist who might try to cause some harm to a crowd. You're going to see some observation officers up on rooftops, both along the waterfront and Copley Square. Unfortunately, that's a new reality after what happened in Las Vegas. We're going to have plenty of EOD bomb assets, whether they be dog and technicians out there. But, that's more of a precaution now. Unfortunately, those are the things like New York that we have to watch for. But you'll see a lot of uniform presence out there, so people should be secure in coming. I also want to stress the neighborhoods. We've had a recent uptick in the violence around the city. And I met with the gang unit this morning. I met with our drug unit, with the chief. All of us had a team back to make sure we have plenty of resources in Dorchester, Mattapian, Roxbury, and some of our neighborhoods that first night sometimes New Year's Eve can be a challenging night with parties. So we have plenty of extra resources in all our neighborhoods across the city, whether it be the theater district for the clubs, Quincy Market, and like the mayor said, all we ask is people to act responsibly. If you look over the last couple of years, we've had several tragedies with young individuals leaving some of these nightclubs intoxicated and ending up in the water. Not only is it cold, where alcohol can have an impact, but we don't want to see those tragedies. So we'll have our licensed premise unit out in force, checking all the licensed premises to make sure there's not over-serving, there's not overcrowding, and they're not serving minors. So we have a lot of things to, a lot of challenges always on New Year's Eve, but I just want to stress there are no threats. Everyone, like the mayor said, please come down, dress warmly, take public transportation, and we should all have a great night. So thank you. With that being said, I'm going to introduce Dusty Rhodes from Conventions, who does a great job putting on First Night every year. So, Dusty.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd first like to thank the mayor and the people that are standing here, because this event would not happen if it weren't for the incredible support of the different departments and the mayor himself. So as we go into our 42nd year, it is a wonderful tradition for the city. A few years ago, we changed up the format where we made it totally free, open to everyone, very diverse. Our talent that we'll have in Copley Square, starting on New Year's Eve day, right through into the evening, is all comprised of local talent. We're very proud of that. Very diverse set of talent, everything from the one end of the spectrum to the other culturally. Our ice sculptures, with yes, Mayor, they're in fine shape. They're not gonna melt. Our Enchanted Forest is the theme, and our sculptors are at work as we speak. We will have a colorful, wonderful light show on the New Year's Eve with the iconic buildings of the Boston Public Library, Trinity Church, and Fairmont Copley Plaza. It'll depict almost like an Italian piazza with a spectacle of lights on the facades of all those buildings, culminating with a pyrotechnic display at Fairmont Copley Plaza, which has been a treat for everyone at midnight following the countdown at Copley. As you also know, something that's very warm and dear to my heart is the David Mugar fireworks at 7 p.m. It's so wonderful to see all the families out there around the Frog Pond awaiting this early fireworks display, which is really quite wonderful. The People's Procession steps off with the mayor at 6 o'clock at Copley Square, and several 100,000 people have come out in the past, coming down Boylston Street, culminating at the Boston Common. And this year, we're glad to say that the midnight fireworks are back due to the help of a number of neighborhood groups. There'll be a simultaneous fire display off the Seaport area as well as off the north end, thanks to some good support of our local associations such as Boston Harbor Now. We want to thank, again, the mayor for providing all the services necessary for a free event such as this to happen, and we look forward to a glorious evening, and thank you.
Chief Green.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. As we all know, the first night celebration is a family-oriented event. We are encouraging families to utilize the MBTA to come into the city of Boston and to enjoy the festivities that the city is offering. We will have additional transit police officers, both uniformed and in plain clothes throughout the system to ensure that everybody has a safe and enjoyable ride into Boston. We ask our riders to act responsibly and to be respectful to one another and to be especially mindful of those with children, the elderly, and people with disabilities as you use the MBTA. The consumption of alcohol and/or unruly behavior will not be tolerated on the MBTA. As I said, we will have extra patrols on the system to ensure that everybody is behaving or acting appropriately. As the commissioner has already said, currently there are no known credible threats to the city of Boston or to the MBTA. But however, we will continue to be in close communication with our local, state, and federal law enforcement partners. And as usual, I'd like to ask the public's assistant. If you see something, say something. Nothing's too small. Be our extra eyes out there, eyes and ears out there. If you see something, call 617-222-1212, or simply download. The MBTA offers a great tool, and it's an app. It's called the MBTA CSA app, where you can text us, send us a photo, or both. And the good thing about it, it's free and it's anonymous. And you can send it right to our dispatchers. It goes right to our dispatchers. The dispatchers will reply, and we'll send somebody out to respond and to investigate. As the mayor has already said, the MBTA is suspending all fare collections after 8 p.m. on all transportation modes. I just want to get that out there. And just know that together we can have a safe and enjoyable first night. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in light of last night's tragic event in New York City where we lost 12 individuals, 4 children, and a number of people critically injured, it's imperative that people are aware of the precautions they need to take in this cold weather. Listen, if you lose your power, you got to be very cognizant of any additional heating sources, whether it's a space heater, make sure that UL approved, make sure you don't have any combustibles within 3 feet of the space heater, and you never leave them unattended. You don't leave them and go out, or you leave them overnight, or when you go to bed. You make sure you shut them down. Also, candles, another problem for us, especially this time of the year. They're very festive, but they also could cause some significant fires. We have some serious challenges in this type of weather as far as firefighting goes. As you can imagine, frozen hydrants, frozen equipment, and certainly the fatigue that sets in very quickly for our firefighters at these events. So we have a number of additional resources that will be available in case of going through this cold weather. I'd also caution people around heating sources around, other than, don't use your stove as a potential heating source. Carbon monoxide, to be very careful. Make sure your vents are clear. Make sure they're not frozen ice around any vents outside in the perimeter of your house. Make sure that everything is vented well, and just to be very careful. And please, if you have frozen pipes, not to try to thaw them with a torch, okay? Call a professional, a plumber. And if you do attempt to thaw a frozen pipe underneath your sink or something, use a hairdryer. That's probably the safest bet, okay? But please encourage people not to use that. We have tremendous loss of life and property throughout the year with people using torches that are inexperienced. So I encourage people to make sure they call a professional if they do have frozen pipes. So thank you.
Thank you. Before we take questions, I just want to know, so you know who's up here. Obviously, Chief Green from the MBTA, Chief Hooley from EMS, Chief Willie Gross from the Boston Police Department, Nancy Anderson from Emergency Management is here, Jerome Smith, Office Enabled Services. If anyone has any questions at non-emergency, you can call 311. in the end, Chris Osgood from Chief of Streets, Amy Yendel, who's the Special Events Coordinator, and also Gina Fandaka, who's here from Transportation. So any questions you have on with any of these folks, we're here to answer. So.
Mayor, you're talking about dangerous levels of cold.
Yep.
We're saying limit your time outside.
Yep.
Why then is the city urging people to come outside?
Didn't urge them to come. What we said would come, if you come in town, be prepared. And then as we get closer to New Year's Eve, we're going to make decisions on some of the events. It's too early to cancel them now. If a Gulfstream comes in and changes the weather forecast where it's not the weather that we're anticipating, we don't want to be too early on it. So we're going to play this thing by ear. Nancy Anderson from Emergency Management monitoring the weather. They monitor through two different weather operations as well as what you guys report on TV.
Why not set meeting
Because we just don't have the ability to do it right now, and I think that what we're going to be doing is we are going to have there'll be businesses that are open that night on Boylston Street. So a lot of those businesses, people will go into shopping there and doing their thing. So that's why we don't.
I did have a question about what's new this year, Commissioner. You mentioned the observation officers.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about what the goal is by having them up on the roof?
Well, I think in Las Vegas, I think we've seen, someone firing from a hotel, and to have people above the ground looking down for a potential hazard like that is a new reality. I think it happened in Reno, where someone was shooting out of a high window, and unfortunately it's a reality now. And we did it in the playoffs at Fenway Park this year, which is crazy. The first time we have ever had to do that, but unfortunately, we have copycats out there. We have people who are inspired to do things like that. So to have eyes and ears not only on the ground, which we'll have plenty, and I want to give my officers I want to commend them. They're going to be out there for long hours. A lot of them are being ordered to work on their first night. So they do a tremendous job day in and day out. But every day the complexity of our job changes with the need to be on rooftops. And obviously we're going to swap them off quite frequently because of the cold, but unfortunately that's a new reality today, that not only do we need the public's eyes on the ground, but we need to have some observation from up above.
Because the shooter in Vegas was are you getting pushback from any hotels? Are they working with you?
No, they work with us. Especially the Back Bay Neighborhood Association, Meg Miser-Cohen, Alan Snow, who's from the Back Bay Security Network. We're in constant dialogue. They're part of our regional intelligence. We brief them anytime there's a threat on a daily basis. So we're very fortunate to have excellent private partners on securing that whole area. We do it along Patriots parades. We do it along the marathon. A lot more cameras up there since the marathon. And we rely a lot on the Back Bay Security Network's cameras that will help us on that night too.
Who would order an evacuation in the event that an evacuation was necessary from the city?
Well, God forbid. I think that would fall in the mayor's office. God forbid we had to do something like that. I don't think depending on what the crisis was, we'd figure it out. But it would be the mayor's office and the police commissioner and the fire commissioner working in tandem depending on what happened. God forbid something were to happen to that magnitude.
You could go to the EMS. You have written now. Can you speak to that? Because of the amount of talking to emergency medics and things of that nature.
Yeah, no, we're gonna have extra staff out there that night. Obviously, we always do. Well, Chief, want to talk a little bit about it?
Sure.
Just real quick,
Yeah, no, we've already scheduled like several extra ambulances for mostly for downtown, but also for Back Bay and around there. And with the idea is we'll also have approximately 20 other people between motorized carts. We even have some people that'll be dressed warm, but they'll be on bikes. We'll have some SUVs and stuff so we can get around where streets are closed during either procession or during fireworks, which is really no different than past years. And the main reason we do this is we want to keep up our protection in the neighborhoods because there are house parties and other things going on. So that way we won't be drawn from the neighborhoods to help protect downtown. Oh, yes.
What sort of treatment will you be prepared for regarding the cold?
Well, if we same as what we're doing today and for the last couple of days, we've been living this right now, right? You all know that. So the public messaging going out about people dressing warm and being aware of folks who are out who aren't prepared for the homeless. The mayor's hitting it every day, and that's great. We haven't had, knock on wood, any real tragedies associated with the cold here, because people have been observant and vigilant. So we're going to keep that up. But we do have extra blankets and all the if we suspect that at all, we'll remove somebody to a heat source. We'll get them out of there.
Commissioner Evans.
Let me just add one quick thing, and then bring the commissioner up. People also have to be careful, because they'll be drinking, and they're going to think they can run outside with a sweatshirt on, when in fact it's going to be freezing cold temperatures. So we're asking people to be very careful if you decide to run outside, or if you have friends that are going outside. You see them first night, you see kids that want to be in the front of the camera, and a lot of them have T-shirts on, things like that. That's not going to be acceptable for your own body this year. Commissioner?
Touching on the topic that Charmin was speaking about earlier, the hotels and the observation officers. New York City is clearing the parking decks in and around Times Square. Do we ever need to get to that point of taking these drastic measures?
Well, I think if we thought it was necessary, but along Boylston Street, especially in Copley, other than the parking garage, which is about a block or two off up at Stewart in Dartmouth, we don't have any real parking areas, but we work with the malls, obviously, and we work with the whole network, but again, there's no threat here. I think New York, unfortunately, over the last several months, whether it was on the waterfront, that particular incident, they've had some recent threats, and I think they really have to step it up. Their crowds are huge. That's sort of a security nightmare. I think ours is very manageable, and right now, again, there's no threat, but we always need the public's eyes and ears to help us if anything looks suspicious. But, at this time, we're not shutting down anything to their magnitude because nothing is along the route.
Commissioner, the Office of Emergency Management states that the police department and the fire department, Mr. Commissioner, would conduct or coordinate the evacuation efforts in the event that the mayor issues an evacuation order. Your orders to your officers, it'd be clear to say, or safe to say, that there would be orders ordering those staff to stay behind while the evacuation process is taking place. Is that correct, Mr. Commissioner?
I mean, we've done evacuations around July 4th. We've had lightning storm. We've evacuated people from the Esplanade working with the state police. So it's not, wouldn't be the first time we would have to do it. Obviously, I'd work with Commissioner Finn, Renee Fielding. We have a UCC operation up in effect. So, let's hope we never do it, but it's not like we haven't done it in the past.
Do those orders come with secondary provisions, meaning are there logistical supports left behind as well for those officers, those firefighters, and those paramedics that are ordered to stay behind while everyone else is hauling?
Absolutely. I mean, we're always concerned for the safety of our firemen and police, but if there's people who need to be rescued, then obviously we're going to hang behind and make sure everyone's out safely.
And during the marathon incident, police, fire, and EMS were heading to the situation, not knowing exactly what was happening there, and they evacuated Boylston Street and the surrounding areas, if you remember, and basically the city wasn't officially locked down per se, but there was a coordination between the state, federal, and local authorities. God forbid something like that would happen, the three agencies would get together and talk about it.
I just had a question for the fire commissioner. Frozen hydrants you mentioned are an issue in this kind of weather. Is there a way that firefighters can check that stuff in advance, and are you doing that stuff? Like, what are some of the practices?
We actually, I got to commend Boston Water and Sewer Commission, because they've done a miraculous job with the hydrant system over the last 5 years. Okay, the hydrant system in the city is sound. I think about 90% of it's been replaced. We had the incident in East Boston last weekend. We had a frozen hydrant. That hydrant has been replaced. So annually we go out, the fire companies go out into their sub-districts and inspect all the hydrants to see if there's any water in the barrels, to make sure that they drain properly and so on. So again, Boston Water and Sewer has done a tremendous job. I'm so confident in the hydrant system in the city. But again, in this weather, depending where the frost line is, if there could be a cracked pipe, things can happen, and you just got to be prepared for it. But I think we're in good shape.
For Dusty Roads, can you talk a little bit about the scope of this year's event? It seems like over the years it's steadily gotten smaller. You've moved from Hines to the Boston Public Library. It seems like that's continuing. Is that the case?
It actually has gotten much, much bigger. When we took Copley Square and made it as the focus, it brought many, many, many more people down to Boston into the People's Parade. What did get smaller was the number of venues, the small venues that were outliers, and those were, in our analysis, not very well attended and were not really productive, and quite frankly, they were budget killers. So what we did was we turned this into a free event, consolidated one place. People want to be where other people are, and it brought a focus to first night, which we're really very happy with.
Regarding the cold, is there a threshold for the number of medical issues that you see?
No, I mean, I think we play it by ear, see what happens. I mean, we're going to obviously watch what's happening in the next few nights here in Boston. You know, we've had 2 now brutally cold nights. Tonight's going to be a 3rd in a row. You know, so we're going to be watching all this. As we move forward in the next couple of days, we'll make decisions as far as what events potentially could be moved or canceled or have to be canceled.
Plans to cancel the polar plunge and the Elm Street brownies?
You can try and do that. If they want to jump in the water, they can go in the water. You know, I have no idea what they're thinking of. The picture on the front page of Herald today, I have no idea.
Reached out.
You can't, I mean, in this event like that, you can't force somebody not to have an event like that. It's just like we can't force somebody who's homeless to come in. We can encourage them and do everything we can. I guess we can do a court order and get them to come in through the court, but we're going to do everything we can to allow them to try and coerce them to come into the place. You know, there's a couple of plunges on New Year's Day, and that's South Boston's one of them over on L Street. So, you know, they might not have as big a crowd as they had in the past, and if they are, they're going to be in that water really fast.
Besides alcohol, what else are you asking people not to bring to the events?
You know, don't be smoking marijuana. It's a public park. You can't smoke cigarettes. We encourage you not to bring bags into town. You know, because we'll be looking at certain bag searching. If you bring a bag, bring a clear bag, make it easier for all personnel. You know, take into account that, you know, people, if you have a backpack and people are concerned about you, they're gonna grab a police officer. So we're asking people not to bring the backpacks in. You know, no fireworks. You can't bring fireworks into the city of Boston. You know, you can't bring that. You know, I guess if you're protesting, we don't want you to bring signs and sticks in. We don't want you to have problems with anything like that. So just use common sense. I mean, it's about common sense this night, and it's a family night. And if people do come in, the beauty about first night is that at Boston Common at 7 o'clock, it's all little kids and families. And then at night, Dusty brought back the fireworks this year. It's older people watching the fireworks. So it really is a family fun event. This year is cold, and we're asking you to, if you come in, make sure you dress warm, dress appropriately, and be prepared because of the cold weather.
We're just headed to Monday inauguration. Anything you just kind of thought, obviously.
Yeah, no, we're excited. I did a walkthrough a little while ago, you know, and you know, working on my remarks, and I talked to she's not the president, but I talked to Councilor Campbell about the event, and she invited me over to the council to address the council after they elect the president. It's an exciting day. You know, we have 3 new members of the Boston City Council, and it's an exciting day for everyone and their families. It's going to be cold that day too, but we're excited. And having Vice President Biden come in here to do the swearing in, take part in the swearing in, is exciting. It's the first time in the history of Boston that a vice president has ever taken part in something like this. So he's excited. He called me the other day just to say he was excited. Thank you for offering it up to him. So I think it'll be a good day. Nice way to start off the new year.
Do you have priorities that are kind of top of the list?
I'm going to be Monday. I'll be letting you know them all. All right. We'll do it offline, just all right, thank you, and thank you for coming. I just appreciate, and any information you get out, what Commissioner Finn said, aside from first night, if you could get that out, just to, you've been doing a great job already, all the news stations and the papers, just get more information out. We want to flood the airways with information because, like I said, I don't remember any other time that we've had 3 consecutive days like this cold, and anticipating another, I think, 3 or 4 more days of it. I don't remember this much of a cold spell like this, so I appreciate it.